in the heart of the ancient kingdom of Zahiristan, where the sun-kissed deserts met the towering spires of marble palaces, there ruled a sultan whose name echoed through the corridors of power and infamy alike. Sultan Khalid Al-Rashid was a man of insatiable appetites. His reign marked not by the conquests of lands or the wisdom of governance, but by the dark indulgences that festered within the gilded walls of his opulent residence. I, as the humble narrator of this tale, have pieced together the fragments of history, whispers from courtiers, and the silenced cries of the innocent to unveil the perverted paradise he crafted. A harem not of consenting women, but of children, tender souls plucked from the fringes of society to satisfy his unending cravings. The kingdom of Zahiristan was a land of contrasts, where the scorching sands gave way to lush oases fed by underground rivers, and the nomadic tribes coexisted uneasily with the urban elite who basked in the sultan's favor. Sultan Khalid ascended to the throne at the tender age of 25, following the mysterious death of his father, Sultan Amir, who had been known for his just rule and devotion to the ancient codes of honor. Whispers in the bazaars suggested that Khalid's rise was no accident. Poison, they said, had claimed the old sultan's life during a feast where only the closest family dined. But such rumors were swiftly quashed by the royal guards, their scimitars gleaming under the relentless sun as a warning to any who dared speak ill of the new ruler. From the outset, Khalid's rule was defined by excess. He expanded the palace grounds, commissioning architects from distant lands to erect towering minarets adorned with intricate mosaics of lapis lazuli and gold leaf. The central courtyard bloomed with exotic gardens, where peacocks strutted amid fountains that sprayed scented water into the air. Yet, beneath this veneer of splendor lay the heart of his depravity. The forbidden wing, a secluded section of the palace accessible only to the sultan and his most trusted eunuchs. It was here that the harem of children began to take shape, a secret so guarded that even the viziers spoke of it in hushed tones, fearing the sultan's wrath. The selection process was methodical and cruel, orchestrated by the chief eunuch, Omar, a towering figure with a scarred face and eyes that held no mercy. Omar roamed the kingdom's villages and cities under the guise of recruiting young talents for the Royal Academy, a supposed institution for educating the brightest minds. In reality, he sought out children between the ages of 8 and 14, those with delicate features, innocent eyes, and bodies untouched by the hardships of adulthood. Orphans were his prime targets, for they had no families to protest their disappearance. Wealthy merchants' children were occasionally taken too, under the pretext of honoring their families with royal service, though bribes and threats ensured silence. One such child was little Aisha, a girl of 10 with raven-black hair and skin like polished ivory. She lived in the dusty outskirts of the capital, tending to her widowed mother's meager stall in the market. Aisha's laughter was said to be like the tinkling of bells, drawing customers with its purity. When Omar's caravan arrived, he spotted her immediately, his gaze lingering too long on her slender form. That night, under the cover of darkness, guards seized her from her bed, muffling her screams with silken cloths soaked in sweet-smelling herbs. Her mother, upon waking to an empty cot, was told by a messenger that Aisha had been chosen for a great honor, to serve in the palace. A pouch of gold coins was left as compensation, but it could not fill the void in her heart. Aisha was not alone. Boys like young Karim, a shepherd's son with curly locks and a voice that could soothe wild beasts, were also ensnared. Karim had dreamed of becoming a poet, reciting verses to the stars as he watched over his flock. Omar promised him lessons from the finest scholars, but instead, he was whisked away to the forbidden wing, where the air was thick with incense and the walls echoed with muffled sobs. The children were bathed in rose-scented waters, dressed in fine silks that barely concealed their youth, and taught to perform dances and songs that pleased the sultan's twisted desires. They were fed delicacies, dates stuffed with almonds, honeyed pastries, and spiced meats, to keep their bodies supple and their spirits subdued with opiates hidden in the food. Sultan Khalid himself was a study in contradiction. Tall and broad-shouldered, with a beard trimmed to perfection and eyes that burned with an unnatural fire, he presented himself to the world as a devout leader. He attended prayers 5 times a day in the Grand Mosque, quoting verses from the holy texts to justify his rule. Yet, In the privacy of his chambers, he shed this facade like a serpent's skin. His nights were spent in the harem, where the children were paraded before him like living dolls. He would select one or more, leading them to his private alcove adorned with velvet cushions and mirrors that reflected every shameful act. The Sultan believed that the innocence of youth held the key to eternal vitality, a delusion fed by charlatan alchemists who sold him potions promising immortality through such perversions. As the harem grew, so did the web of secrecy that enveloped it. The palace staff, from maids to cooks, were bound by oaths of loyalty, enforced by the threat of execution. One maid, Fatima, a woman in her 40s with calloused hands from years of service, once overheard the cries of a child and dared to question Omar. She vanished the next day, her body later found in the desert, attributed to bandits. Such incidents served as grim reminders to all who served. But cracks were beginning to form in this facade of control. In the shadowed alleys of the capital, a group of dissidents, former courtiers exiled for minor offenses, began to gather. Led by Vizier Hassan, a man who had once been Khalid's advisor but was dismissed for opposing a tax increase. They collected tales from grieving parents and escaped servants. Hassan, with his sharp intellect and network of spies, suspected that the Sultan's harem was more than rumor. He sent a young infiltrator, disguised as a merchant's apprentice, to probe the palace grounds. Meanwhile, within the harem, the children formed fragile bonds. Aisha and Karim became confidants, whispering stories of their lost homes under the moonlit skylights. They dreamed of escape, but the walls were high, guarded by eunuchs who never slept. Unbeknownst to them, one eunuch, a newcomer named Yusuf, harbored doubts. Yusuf had been castrated as a boy himself, sold into service by impoverished parents, and the sight of these children stirred memories he had long suppressed. As the sun set on Zahiristan, casting long shadows over the palace, the Sultan's paradise seemed unassailable. Yet, in the depths of the night, the first threads of conspiracy began to weave. A letter, smuggled out by Yusuf, reached Vizier Hassan, detailing the horrors within. It spoke of children vanishing into the Sultan's embrace, never to emerge the same, their spirits broken like fragile glass. Hassan's eyes widened as he read it by candlelight, realizing the depth of the depravity. This was no mere indulgence. It was a systematic corruption that threatened the soul of the kingdom. But revelations would come slowly, layered in deception and danger. For now, the harem thrived in its perverted splendor, a paradise built on the ruins of innocence. The Sultan, lounging on his throne, laughed with delight as another child was brought before him, oblivious to the storm brewing beyond his walls. Little did he know that the truth, like a desert wind, would soon erode the foundations of his empire. The golden palace of Zahiristan, bathed in the relentless glow of the desert sun, stood as a monument to Sultan Khalid Al-Rashid's unchecked power. Its domes gleamed like polished amber, and the calls to prayer from the minarets reverberated across the capital, a reminder of the Sultan's divine right to rule. Yet, beneath this facade of piety and grandeur, the forbidden wing festered like a wound hidden under silk. The harem of children, a secret known only to a select few, continued to grow, its existence a stain on the kingdom's honor. I, the narrator, weave this tale from the accounts of those who dared to resist, from the fragments of courage that flickered in the darkness, and from the growing unrest that threatened to unravel the Sultan's perverted paradise. Within the palace, the children endured their gilded cage with a mixture of resignation and quiet defiance. Aisha, now 11, had grown adept at navigating the unspoken rules of the forbidden wing. Her sharp mind, once used to haggle prices in the market, now memorized the schedules of the eunuchs and the Sultan's moods. She had learned to feign compliance, her eyes downcast as she danced or sang, but her heart burned with a longing for freedom. Karim, her closest ally, shared her resolve. At 12, he was taller now, his voice deepening, but the innocence in his eyes remained untouched by the Sultan's corruption. Together, they whispered plans in the dead of night, their words cloaked by the soft clinking of the fountains in the harem's courtyard. The forbidden wing was a labyrinth of opulence and despair. Its walls, adorned with intricate arabesques and verses from holy texts, seemed to mock the suffering within. The children were kept in chambers lined with silk cushions and perfumed lamps, but the air was heavy with fear. Each night, one or more would be summoned to the Sultan's private alcove, a chamber of mirrors and velvet where Khalid indulged his desires. The children returned changed, some silent, others weeping, their spirits chipped away like marble under a sculptor's chisel. Aisha noticed that some, like little Noor, a girl of 9 with golden curls, stopped speaking altogether, their eyes hollow as if their souls had been stolen. Outside the palace, Vizier Hassan's network of dissidents grew bolder. The letter smuggled by Yusuf, the conflicted eunuch, had ignited a spark in Hassan's heart. He convened secret meetings in the back rooms of tea-houses, where merchants, scholars, and disenfranchised nobles gathered to plot. Hassan was a man of 50, his beard streaked with silver, but his eyes burned with the fire of youth. He had once believed in the Sultan's potential, advising the young Khalid in his early days. But the Sultan's descent into depravity had shattered that hope, and now Hassan saw only one path: rebellion. His spies, disguised as traders or pilgrims, infiltrated the palace grounds, mapping its corridors and bribing minor guards for information. Yusuf, within the palace, became an unlikely linchpin in this brewing storm. His role as a junior eunuch gave him access to the forbidden wing, where he observed the children's plight with growing horror. Unlike Omar, the chief eunuch whose loyalty to Khalid was absolute, Yusuf's heart wavered. He remembered his own childhood, stolen by slavers who sold him to the palace. Each cry from the harem echoed his own pain, and the letter he sent to Hassan was only the beginning. He began to leave small tokens for the children, sweets wrapped in cloth, notes of encouragement hidden in their bedding, gestures that kept their hope alive. One night, as the moon hung low over Zahiristan, Aisha and Karim discovered one of Yusuf's notes. Tucked beneath a cushion, it read, "You are not forgotten. Trust in the shadows." The words, simple yet profound, kindled a fire in their hearts. They began to watch Yusuf closely, noting his subtle gestures, a lingering glance, a slight nod when Omar was not watching. They dared not approach him directly, for the walls had ears, but they began to weave him into their plans. Aisha suggested hiding messages in the hems of their garments, hoping Yusuf would find them. Karim, ever the poet, crafted verses that seemed innocent but carried coded pleas for help. Meanwhile, Sultan Khalid remained oblivious to the growing unrest. His days were spent in council chambers, where he dismissed the concerns of his viziers with a wave of his jeweled hand. His nights belonged to the harem, where he reveled in his power over the innocent. Yet his paranoia was growing. He had begun to suspect betrayal among his courtiers, ordering random searches of their quarters and executing those who showed the slightest disloyalty. One vizier, caught with a letter discussing tax reforms, was beheaded in the courtyard, his blood staining the marble as a warning to others. Khalid's alchemists, sensing his desperation, fed him new potions, claiming they would enhance his vitality and reveal traitors in his dreams. The potions only clouded his mind, making him more erratic. Hassan's spies uncovered a crucial piece of the puzzle: the Sultan's reliance on Omar. The chief eunuch was not merely a servant, but a mastermind who ensured the harem's secrecy. Omar's loyalty stemmed from a dark pact. Khalid had promised him wealth and power beyond imagination, including a private estate where Omar could indulge his own vices. Hassan realized that breaking Omar's hold over the forbidden wing was key to dismantling the harem. He devised a plan to sow discord between Omar and the Sultan, planting false evidence that Omar was embezzling funds meant for the harem's upkeep. The evidence, a forged ledger, was slipped into the palace through a bribed scribe. As the plan unfolded, tensions within the forbidden wing reached a breaking point. A new child, a boy named Tariq, arrived, his fiery spirit unbroken despite his abduction from a coastal village. Tariq, 13 and wiry, refused to comply with the eunuch's commands, spitting at Omar during his first inspection. The punishment was swift, a lash across his back, but Tariq's defiance inspired the others. Aisha and Karim saw in him a spark that could ignite their escape. They began to include him in their whispered counsels, teaching him their coded language. Tariq suggested a bold idea: sabotage the harem's routines to create chaos, giving them a chance to slip through the guards' vigilance. One evening, as the Sultan prepared for his nightly indulgences, Aisha orchestrated a distraction. She spilled a jug of rosewater in the corridor, claiming it was an accident. While the eunuchs scrambled to clean it, Karim slipped into the storeroom, loosening the lids of incense burners to fill the harem with choking smoke. The chaos allowed Yusuf to pass a message to Aisha, hidden in a tray of figs. The gate opens at midnight. Be ready. The message was vague, but it was enough. Aisha's heart raced as she shared it with Karim and Tariq. They agreed to spread the word to the other children, preparing for a moment that could mean freedom or death. Outside, Hassan's forged ledger reached Khalid's hands. The Sultan, already unhinged by his potions, flew into a rage, summoning Omar to explain. Omar, caught off guard, stammered denials, but Khalid's trust was shaken. He ordered Omar confined to his quarters, placing a lesser eunuch in charge of the harem. This shift weakened the Forbidden Wing's security, creating a window of opportunity. Yusuf, sensing the moment, began to tamper with the guards' schedules, ensuring fewer would patrol the outer gate at midnight. As the hour approached, the children huddled in their chambers, hearts pounding. Aisha clutched a small dagger she had stolen from a guard's belt, her hands trembling but resolute. Karim recited a poem under his breath, a prayer for courage. Tariq's eyes blazed with defiance, ready to fight if needed. The palace slept, unaware of the rebellion brewing within its walls. The truth of the Sultan's depravity was a spark, and the children, guided by Yusuf and Hassan's distant hand, were ready to fan it into a flame that could consume the golden paradise. The palace of Zahiristan stood silent under a crescent moon, its marble walls glowing faintly as if guarding the secrets within. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine and the distant hum of cicadas, but beneath this serene facade, a storm was brewing. The Forbidden Wing, the heart of Sultan Khalid Al-Rashid's depraved empire, pulsed with the quiet courage of children who dared to dream of freedom. I, the narrator, recount this pivotal moment from the whispered testimonies of survivors, the coded messages passed in the dark, and the courage of those who risked everything to expose the Sultan's perversions. The midnight hour approached, and with it, the promise of liberation or the peril of betrayal. Inside the Forbidden Wing, Aisha, Karim, and Tariq prepared for the escape that could change their fates. Aisha, her small frame taut with resolve, hid the stolen dagger in the folds of her silk robe, its cold steel a reminder of the stakes. Karim, clutching a scrap of parchment with a half-finished poem, whispered verses to steady his nerves. Tariq, the fiery newcomer, paced their shared chamber, his eyes scanning for any sign of betrayal. The other children, some as young as 8, huddled together, their faces a mix of fear and hope. Yusuf's note, "The gate opens at midnight. Be ready," had spread like wildfire, igniting a collective determination among the captives. Yusuf, the junior eunuch, was the linchpin of their plan. His heart, torn between duty and conscience, had led him to betray the Sultan's trust. He had spent weeks observing the guards' routines, noting the lax moments when wine or exhaustion dulled their vigilance. With Omar, the chief eunuch, confined to his quarters under suspicion of theft, the harem's security was in disarray. Yusuf had subtly altered the patrol schedules, ensuring that only 2 guards would be stationed at the outer gate of the Forbidden Wing at midnight. He had also bribed a kitchen boy to lace the guards' evening meal with a mild sedative, hoping it would slow their reactions. Outside the palace, Vizier Hassan's rebellion gained momentum. His network of dissidents had grown, now including a former captain of the royal guard, Malik, who had been dismissed for questioning Khalid's harsh punishments. Malik brought military expertise and knowledge of the palace's defenses, mapping out escape routes through the labyrinthine corridors. Hassan's spies had confirmed Yusuf's role as an ally, and they sent coded messages to him through a laundry maid, instructing him to guide the children to a hidden passage beneath the palace stables. This passage, built centuries ago for royal escapes during sieges, led to the desert beyond the city walls. As midnight neared, the children moved with practiced silence. Aisha led the group, her sharp eyes scanning for any sign of danger. They slipped through the harem's corridors, avoiding the flickering light of oil lamps. The sedative had worked. One guard slumped against a pillar, his snores echoing softly. The other, stationed at the gate, rubbed his eyes wearily. Yusuf appeared from the shadows, his face pale but resolute. He unlocked the gate with a stolen key, motioning for the children to hurry. Aisha counted them as they passed. 15 in total, including little Noor, whose silence had become a haunting presence. They moved as one, their bare feet silent on the cool marble. The hidden passage was a gamble. Yusuf led them through a storeroom, where sacks of grain hid a trapdoor. The air grew damp and musty as they descended into the earth, the walls narrowing until they could only move single file. Karim clutched Aisha's hand, his poet's heart racing with fear and hope. Tariq, bringing up the rear, kept watch for pursuers. The passage was lit only by a single torch Yusuf carried, its flame casting eerie shadows on the rough-hewn stone. The children whispered encouragements to each other, their voices barely audible over the drip of water from unseen cracks. Above ground, the palace stirred. A guard, roused by a noise, discovered the empty chambers of the forbidden wing. His shouts echoed through the corridors, waking others. Omar, released from confinement after swearing loyalty to Khalid, took charge. His scarred face twisted with rage as he realized the extent of the betrayal. He suspected Yusuf immediately, recalling the younger eunuch's hesitations. Omar rallied the guards, ordering a search of the palace and its grounds. The Sultan, awakened from a drugged slumber, flew into a fury, his voice booming through the halls as he demanded the children's return. He clutched a vial of his alchemist's potion, his eyes wild with paranoia, convinced that this escape was part of a larger plot to dethrone him. In the passage, the children's progress was slow. The tunnel was old, its walls crumbling in places, and the air grew thin. Noor stumbled, her small body weakened by months of trauma. But Aisha lifted her, refusing to leave anyone behind. Yusuf urged them forward, his torch flickering as the oil ran low. They reached a fork in the tunnel, and Yusuf hesitated, his memory of the map uncertain. Aisha, her instincts honed by survival, pointed to the left, where the air felt fresher. Her decision proved correct. Soon, they saw faint starlight filtering through a grate above. They emerged into the stables, where the scent of hay and horses masked their presence. Malik awaited them, disguised as a stable hand. He led the children to a caravan of camels, hidden behind bales of straw. The dissidents had prepared food, water, and cloaks to disguise the children as nomads. The plan was to take them to a distant oasis, where a tribe allied with Hassan would shelter them. But as they mounted the camels, hoofbeats thundered in the distance. Omar's guards, alerted by a traitor among the kitchen staff, were closing in. Malik drew his scimitar, his face grim. "Ride!" he shouted, urging the children to flee while he and a handful of dissidents prepared to hold the line. Aisha took the lead, guiding her camel with a steadiness that belied her fear. Karim and Tariq helped the younger children, ensuring none fell behind. The desert stretched before them, vast and unforgiving, but it promised freedom. Behind them, the clash of steel rang out as Malik's men fought the guards. Yusuf, torn between joining the fight and protecting the children, chose the latter, riding at Aisha's side. The sounds of battle faded as they rode deeper into the night, the palace's lights shrinking to mere specks. In the palace, Khalid's rage reached new heights. He interrogated Omar, accusing him of incompetence. Omar, desperate to prove his loyalty, revealed Yusuf's betrayal, piecing together the junior eunuch's subtle actions. Khalid ordered a manhunt, sending riders into the desert with orders to bring back the children alive or dead. The alchemists, sensing their influence waning, fed Khalid lies about a grand conspiracy led by foreign kings, further clouding his judgment. The Sultan, now a puppet of his own fears, began to see enemies everywhere, even among his loyal courtiers. Hassan, hidden in the capital, received word of the escape through a messenger. His heart swelled with hope, but he knew the danger was far from over. The children were free, but the desert was vast, and Omar's riders were relentless. Hassan began planning the next phase, exposing Khalid's crimes to the kingdom. He gathered evidence, letters, witness accounts, and even a stolen ledger detailing the harem's expenses. He knew that revealing the truth would spark outrage, but it could also ignite a civil war. As dawn broke, the children reached the oasis, their bodies weary but their spirits unbroken. The nomads welcomed them, offering shelter and food. Aisha, Karim, and Tariq stood together, watching the sunrise paint the dunes gold. They had escaped the Sultan's grasp, but the fight was not over. The truth of the harem, a secret that had festered in the shadows, was now a weapon in the hands of those who sought justice. The perverted paradise was cracking, and the kingdom of Zahiristan teetered on the edge of revolution. The oasis, a haven of date palms and cool springs, sheltered the escaped children as dawn painted the dunes gold. Aisha, Karim, and Tariq, now leaders among the 15, stood watch, their eyes scanning the horizon for Omar's riders. I, the narrator, weave this final chapter from the embers of rebellion, the courage of the young, and the unraveling of Sultan Khalid's depraved reign. The perverted paradise was crumbling, and the truth, like a desert storm, would bury it. The nomads, allies of Vizier Hassan, hid the children in tents disguised as traitors' camps. Aisha, clutching her dagger, organized the group, ensuring little nor ate despite her silence. Karim's poems, once whispered, now rallied their spirits. Tariq scouted with the nomads, his defiance a beacon. Yusuf, the betraying eunuch, stayed close, haunted by his role but committed to their safety. In Zahiristan's capital, Hassan unleashed his plan. His spies spread the stolen ledger and witness accounts to merchants, scholars, and mosques. The truth of the harem, children stolen for Khalid's lust, ignited outrage. Crowds gathered, chanting for justice. Hassan, with Malik's warriors, stormed the palace gates, their numbers swelled by defecting guards sickened by Khalid's crimes. Inside, Khalid's paranoia consumed him. His alchemist's potions failed, and Omar's failure to recapture the children fueled his rage. He executed courtiers at random, his throne room stained with blood. Omar, sensing the end, fled, but Malik's men captured him in the bazaar, his confession sealing Khalid's fate. The children, guided by nomads, trekked deeper into the desert, aiming for a southern city where Hassan's allies ruled. Aisha's leadership kept them united, though hunger gnawed. Tariq fought off a lone rider, his courage saving them. At night, Karim's verses spoke of hope, binding their wounds. Hassan's rebellion reached its climax. The palace fell as citizens and soldiers turned on Khalid. Cornered, the Sultan raved, clutching a vial of poison. Before he could drink, Malik's blade struck, ending his reign. The forbidden wing was exposed, its silks and mirrors a testament to horror. The kingdom mourned, but the truth freed it. The children reached the southern city, greeted as heroes. Aisha, Karim, and Tariq vowed to rebuild, their scars a reminder of their strength. Hassan, now interim ruler, abolished the harem, vowing justice. The perverted paradise was no more, its secrets laid bare. Zahiristan, scarred but hopeful, began anew, guided by the courage of those who dared to break the golden veil.